Microsoft shocked the gaming industry a couple months ago when they purchased Bethesda, and now information has come out that perhaps those Bethesda games won't be exclusive to Xbox after all. They actually might be on the PlayStation 5. There's a lot here to talk about, so let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? It's Randall419, the man with a million, back again with another video. I hope everyone's having an incredible day, and if you guys could do me a huge favor, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe and notification buttons, and please share this video out on social media. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for all the continued support. Now, this video has been recommended by a lot of you through DMs and being tagged on Twitter. You wanted me to talk about the new quotes from Tim Stewart, the corporate financial officer over at Xbox, that maybe suggest that the Bethesda acquisition and the new games coming from those Bethesda studios won't be exclusive to Xbox like we had previously talked about. In fact, they might still come to PlayStation. Now, I've always said in my videos that I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. These are just my opinions, and I felt really strongly that with Microsoft spending $7.5 billion on the Bethesda acquisition to bolster up its first party and to kind of drive people to Xbox Game Pass, whether it's through the Xbox consoles like the Xbox One, the Series S and X, through Game Pass on PC, or through mobile via Project xCloud. I thought that was their long-term play. They wouldn't be putting games on PlayStation and giving Sony that 30% and getting that short-term cash. I thought the longer-term play, considering Microsoft is a $1 trillion company and didn't need to make that money back immediately, I thought the longer-term play was viable, that Microsoft would put those huge franchises like Elder Scrolls and Doom and Starfield, all of those games on Xbox. And if you wanted to play those huge franchises, there would be only one way. Either buy them directly on PC or through Xbox Game Pass PC, buy them on the Xbox console or subscribe to Xbox Game Pass, and if you wanted to stream them via mobile, you'd have to subscribe to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. I thought that was the play, and I felt very confident that that was what Microsoft was going to do. And especially when you factor in some of Phil Spencer's older quotes about not wanting to always have to answer if certain games would be exclusive, and if he was going to put games on other platforms like the Switch or PlayStation, he would want a full Xbox experience there, meaning Xbox Live, Xbox Achievements, perhaps Xbox Game Pass, and xCloud. And everybody thought, myself included, there would be no way PlayStation would allow Xbox Live, Xbox Achievements, Xbox Game Pass, and xCloud. So we all felt pretty confident that Microsoft wasn't going to put the Bethesda games on those competing platforms. And hey, if I'm wrong about the Bethesda games being exclusive to Xbox, I'll take that out. It was always just my opinion. I get stuff wrong all the time, but my opinion was always formed based on the statements that Phil was saying and his previous comments, and it seemed like a shoo-in that the games would be exclusive to Xbox. Now I am not too sure. So in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the answers that Tim Stewart had to if they're going to be buying more studios, but more importantly, what the exclusivity of the Bethesda games will be. And maybe I'm reading too much into this, and all these answers will mean nothing next year when the sale actually goes through. Only time will tell. But this is what Tim Stewart, the corporate financial officer of Xbox, had to say when someone asked him, hey, and even before the Bethesda acquisition, you had been acquiring a handful of smaller independent studios. Just curious, are you still looking at more studios? What do you look for when you approach these teams? And just what's the overall maybe mergers and acquisition priority right now? And Tim answered, yes. I think the short answer to still looking is we will continue to be acquisitive. We'll continue to look around the industry to find who has the great IP, who are great leaders, who has great product development, who can we rely on and say we need a AAA game launching in fiscal year 24 Q1 for Game Pass. Let's line that. Let's line the roadmap up to go land that, plan that perspective. So we'll continue to look at that. In the past, Bethesda was a little bit of different lens to what we've done in the past, whether it's Ninja Theory or Obsidian or In Exile, some of the smaller studios that had great IP. Bethesda gives us a great sort of launch with, I'll say, launch into a big, let's call it group of content, a big catalog of content that we can use for Game Pass. And we said this as part of the announcement. When we think about Bethesda, it's going to be the continuing to allow, I'll say allow, but continue to sell their games on the platforms that they exist today, and we'll determine what that looks like over time and will change over time. I'm not making any announcements about exclusivity or something like that, but that model will change. So we have yet another Xbox executive who says, hey, they're still looking for content creators. Bethesda purchase gives them a lot. They can go into the back catalog and put everything into Game Pass, whether it's Doom Eternal or Doom 2016, or perhaps Prey, the Dishonored franchise, Elder Scrolls Fallout. It gives them a breadth of content that they can put into Game Pass. And they talk about, hey, we'll continue to sell their games on platforms that they exist today. Speaking of like Fallout 76 and Doom Eternal and their expansion pass, the Bethesda games that are already on PlayStation consoles. And Phil's already said that, they're going to honor the deals for Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop, and Tim pretty much echoes Phil's comments here. So we have Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, and now Tim Stewart, the corporate financial officer of Xbox, all talking about how they're looking for new studios, and they liken it very similar to Netflix. He goes on to say, but as we see success growing in Game Pass, we're going to need to have a content pipeline, both through a rent, where we partner with partners in the industry, and through a buy. We'll need to have first-party content that we can launch day and date, not unlike Orange is the New Black or Stranger Things and House of Cards, boom, boom, boom. We want to have that from our first-party landscape as well. So that's one of the places that we're being a little bit more active in, as you've seen with Bethesda and some of the acquisitions we've done over the last couple years. So like I've been predicting, I think Xbox will buy more studios in the next couple years because they need it to feed Xbox Game Pass. But then Tim Stewart was asked a question that everybody's been obsessing over since the Bethesda acquisition, and that's whether the games will be exclusive to Xbox. The question goes, and another question we're getting from the line here is, with the acquisition of Bethesda, is the plan to make certain Bethesda franchises like Fallout and Doom exclusive to Xbox? Or will you still support cross-platform play? And Tim answers yes, the goal here is where, I'll say it from a cross-platform perspective, Microsoft is a platform. We're one of the first to really support Minecraft, Roadblock, Fortnite across platforms. So we highly encourage cross-platform play simply from this landscape of, if it's good for the gaming ecosystem, it's good for us. Classic rising tide lifts all boats. What we'll do in the long run is we don't have any intentions of just pulling all the Bethesda content out of Sony or Nintendo or otherwise. But what we want is, we want that content in the long run to be either first or better or best, or pick your differentiated experience on our platforms. We will want Bethesda content to show up the best as on our platforms. Yes, that's not a point about being exclusive. That's not a point about where being adjusting timing or content or roadmap. But if you think about something like Game Pass, if it shows up best in Game Pass, that's what we want to see. And we want to drive our Game Pass subscriber base through that Bethesda pipeline. So again, I'm not announcing pulling content from platforms one way or the other, but I suspect you'll continue to see a shift towards a first or better or best approach on our platforms. So these are the quotes that people have been assessing over the past few days. When Tim says what they're doing in the long run is, we don't have any intentions of just pulling all Bethesda content out of Sony or Nintendo, people take that to mean, well, Starfield's gonna be on PlayStation 5. The next Doom is going to be on both platforms. And maybe that's true. Maybe Tim is 100% being truthful here, and that Microsoft doesn't have any intentions of pulling Bethesda games from PlayStation or Nintendo gamers. That might be the actual 100% truth, and Tim's actually answered the question that we've had ever since September 22nd when Microsoft bought Bethesda. Or maybe people are reading too much into this. Maybe what he's talking about is just games like Fallout 76 and the current catalog of Bethesda games on PlayStation and Nintendo, and it doesn't apply to any future games that Bethesda will make for Xbox after the acquisition goes through. Only time will tell on this. But he does have another quote that makes me kind of lean into the fact that at least some of the games from Bethesda will come to PlayStation maybe a year after their Xbox counterpart. So when Tim mentions this concept of Bethesda games showing up first or better or best, it really does imply that some of the Bethesda games will show up on a competing platform. Because if they were exclusive outright, you wouldn't need to qualify that statement with first, better, or best. They're only on Xbox, so of course they're best. But if you're saying first, that implies it's going to come to another platform later on. And let's use Starfield for an example. say it comes out holiday 2021, and Microsoft wanted to use that game to drive Game Pass growth, but also planned on putting it on PlayStation, what they could do is say it's first on Xbox, launching in November 2021, and then November 2022, Starfield comes out on PlayStation. Would definitely check mark that first and better and best, because Microsoft also talks about better and best being tied to Game Pass as well. So yes, there might be a scenario where like Machine Games works on Wolfenstein 3, and because the previous Wolfenstein games were on PlayStation, that game comes to PlayStation maybe a year later. And if Arcane's working on a new IP for their next title, maybe that game is exclusive to Xbox. It really all depends. But then there's another quote in here that makes me think some of these games will be exclusive outright to the Xbox ecosystem, because he talks about Game Pass, and what they want to see as Microsoft is they want to drive Game Pass subscribers through the Bethesda pipeline. And in my opinion, the most effective way to grow your Game Pass subscriber base through the Bethesda pipeline is to only have those games on Xbox, not on PlayStation, because if you have those games on PlayStation, people will just buy it completely outright. And if your whole goal is to drive people into Game Pass, having it on PlayStation kind of negates its full effectiveness. And sometimes when I actually sit down and think about it, it would be incredibly weird for Microsoft to put all the Bethesda games on PlayStation, yet they would keep some of their games exclusive, something like Fable or Avowed, Halo Infinite, Gears of War, and all that stuff is exclusive to Xbox. And it would be incredibly weird to have half of your content show up on a competing platform and half of your content show up only on Xbox. Something like Hellblade 2 probably should be on PlayStation if we're talking about taking games away from the platform they were on. Hellblade was originally on the PlayStation 4, and it came to Xbox later. Then Microsoft bought Ninja Theory, and currently right now Hellblade 2 is only on Xbox. And then you have something like The Outer Worlds, a game that was on all platforms and sold pretty well. Microsoft bought Obsidian, and there's rumors that they're already in pre-production on Outer Worlds 2, and Matt Booty has talked about how that game will probably be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem, but then shouldn't it also show up on competing platforms because that's where the game originated from? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to have half your teams working on multi-platform content and then the other half of your teams working on exclusive content. In my opinion, but then again, I'm just a YouTuber and a single guy. I'm not looking at the finer details of a $7.5 billion acquisition, and maybe Phil Spencer and team made promises to Todd Howard and the teams at Bethesda that they could decide where they put their content, and that was the reason why Xbox won the bid. My personal opinion on this matter is that the Bethesda games should be exclusive to Xbox, and if they can't do full exclusivity for whatever reason, then all the games should at least be exclusive to Xbox for a year. And I know Microsoft loves to compare Game Pass to Netflix, but even something like Netflix has exclusive content to draw people into the ecosystem. They don't put Stranger Things or The Crown or any of their big shows on Disney Plus. And Disney Plus doesn't allow The Mandalorian to be on Hulu. And Hulu has their own exclusive shows. Everybody has exclusive content to draw you to that ecosystem. PlayStation has it with their first party, and same with Nintendo. If Microsoft started to allow some of their Xbox exclusives to show up on other platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo, those users on those platforms would have less of a reason to get into the Xbox ecosystem. Just like if Netflix started to put Stranger Things and their shows onto a different platform. Why subscribe to Netflix to watch The Last Kingdom and Haunting of Hill House or Bly Manor when I can subscribe to Hulu and watch them there? It gives people less of an incentive. At some point, Microsoft is going to definitively have to say whether or not these games will be exclusive to the Xbox platform. Sure, they don't want to do it right now, because if they were planning on putting their games on PlayStation, excitement around Xbox would probably take a nosedive. Yes, they don't own Bethesda right now, and they're not going to talk about it, but whenever that deal goes through, trust me, journalists will definitely be asking that question, and they're going to have to answer, because sooner or later the Bethesda games are going to get announced, whether it's Wolfenstein 3, Prey 2, Dishonored, and Starfield, and people are going to want to know if they can only get those games on Xbox, or if they can buy them on PlayStation. So only time will tell on this. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think about all this Bethesda stuff in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Share this video out on social media and tell a friend about the channel. Hit that notification bell if you always want to be notified immediately whenever I drop a video like this. You can support the channel by going even further by hitting the join button, where you'll get access to channel badges and emotes for the Xbox 2 podcast we do every single Friday with Jez Corden of Windows Central. Thank you guys so much for watching. It truly means the world to me, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later, guys.